So, Mike, what are you doing here today? That'll probably be a good one.
So basically, I'm applied. Well, I've applied for sports and exercise science course.
Excellent.
Just because, first of all, I'm an athlete, so I train boxing. That's my combat sport. So that's what I
beautiful, beautiful.
So I've always been into martial arts, but I've also transitioned into general sports such as football and obviously basketball. But I've just been more into martial arts. However, because I'm still a competitor, I always still wanted to learn on how to be able to understand my training regimen, how to plan it for myself. I didn't always want to rely on coaches because coaches weren't always around. I wanted to be more an independent athlete, and not just an athlete that's just going in the ring and fighting. But I want to be able to understand my psychology, how to understand my patterns, why I do certain things. Also, just being able to curve out my nutrition, my diet. So I've lost a lot of weight. 4 years ago, I used to be around 98 kg. So, and I'm about 5'9", so that's a bit overweight. And I dropped down all the way to I'm at 72 now. So wow. I've been grinding it out. Wow. So yeah, that fitness has always been kind of a me thing. I used to do a bit of swimming as well, gymnastics when I was younger. My mum could kind of put me in different sports.
Brilliant. Gymnastics is the pure strength of any sport you can possibly do. Well done. Your mum sounds like she got good skills.
Yeah. Well, when she wants to, but obviously, apart from that,
Mine used to chase you around with a wooden spoon. I'm that old. Charles. That was why I was probably a good sprinter. Mike, the reason why I was smiling and nodding, your story sounds very similar to mine. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
21.
Okay, so my story was a little bit different, I suppose. Probably not really the area to discuss this, but I was a little bit of a troubled youth. 15, I was made homeless. I was kind of ashamed of it for many years, but now I sort of owned it. This is my story. I was 15 years of age, was made homeless. I started to veer down the world of kind of like violent activity, and then I found myself very much into rugby and Muay Thai. And Muay Thai helped me transition into an area where I was able to explore my frustrations. And then I got a job in a gym at the age of 21. I done my YMCA fitness award, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when I started the university, this is how old I am, as a mature student, I was 24. Back in 2002, it keeps getting worse. I'm having to wear glasses now, waiting to get to 40. Like that, but now I'm just like, I can't see anything close up, and now I just look like a nerd. But with when I went to university, my life changed. And I like to tell this story because I've now got a bachelor's. I've got in sports exercise science, she'll be one of mine, and I've got 2 masters, and I've just handed in my PhD by publication on strength conditioning preparation for Muay Thai coaches and athletes. And I've actually done a lot of research in boxing as well as Muay Thai. And my sort of previous as a child, when you said about gymnastics, my mum used to take me to judo. So very in a strength.
So I used to do judo as well myself when I was a bit younger.
Well, now I've gone the other way around because I've got an injury. I've got an injury called age. And that started to kick in. I've got like osteoarthritis in my foot where I broke it so many times. I had 39 fights, only lost 2, 16 TKOs. These are pro fights. And they were by roundhouse for my right foot. I broke it a few times on people's faces. So, but obviously now I've got this injury and I've got an issue in my knee. So judo is kind of, I'm going back to it because it keeps me in shape. And, you know, we've all seen John Wick film. The guy's a judo expert, right? And we want to go back to that. So yeah, this is just, it's interesting to find out your story. And for the fact you're coming to the University of East London, I think you and I are going to have a very good, well, many good conversations.
I definitely remember you. I saw you at an opening day, actually. Well, taste today.
So one of those. Yeah, the opening days. I think they put me on those opening days because I've got so much energy and I tend to, I believe in it. At the end of the day, Mike, I believe in what I've done. It's got me to where I am now. I wouldn't be here now. I'd definitely be dead if it wasn't for university. I've been to Roehampton as my master's, and then I went back to the University of East London to do a psych, and now obviously finishing my PhD, my publication at the university. The reason why I've got the NSCA in the background and on my T-shirt is something you should look into as well, is the National Strength and Conditioning Association. You said about you wanted to become more informed, which is a presentation which will start officially in a minute, and apparently this presentation is going to be used as a webinar series. So this is obviously a bit of an informal chat, and it's nice obviously to speak to you. So I hate just speaking to a screen. During COVID, was doing it all the time, and I think I was said myself insane. I've sort of stopped saying it because I've been told not to because I should own it. But I do have ADHD. I'm one of the few on my staff, but one of many in society. But we tend to get more stuff done. We just don't do it very well. Yeah. So your journey at the University of East London, I believe already, by the sounds of it, will be very beneficial to you. It will be a start of a long journey, but it's an eventful journey. I try to say to people, don't be in such a rush to finish the journey and reach the destination, because it should be about looking out the window and enjoying it. There's lots of research we're doing at the moment, so hence the reason why we're doing this seminar now. I involve my students in my research more so than probably most universities I'd like to boast about. I've had 15 students published so far on kind of my area, I suppose, as such, and I'm moving away from combat sports, but I'm still involved. So what I'd like to do after this is look up the NSCA, go on Facebook. Not anyone really uses it anymore. We're transitioning over to LinkedIn as the NSCA Combat Sports SIG. So it's a steering interest group, and I've just recently presented over in Baltimore, Baltimore in the United States, and I do a lot of conferences over there, and I meet a lot of people that are my tribe. They're just us. You know, you go over there. You don't want to just listen to your coach, because your coach's coach probably got the information. Their coach who died last century, and it hasn't really transformed or changed. But we are looking at a transition. I'm a research practitioner, which hopefully what you're going to be. So I do research and then I bring it into real life. Whereas some people, especially in sports exercise science, they tend to just keep it as research and it doesn't go into practicality. And then you got practitioners, and I actually heard at a boxing gym once, some guy said to me, I don't believe in science. I must have chased him for about 10 minutes to try and get to him, to try and convince him, then realising that I was just falling upon deaf ears. So it's an understanding of how to get our message across. That's kind of it. So, Mike, but definitely please introduce yourself at opening week. Are you going in as foundation, or are you going in
as foundation? Because so my background was a bit different. I actually started at first when I finished college. I was into IT. I was doing IT, and then I ended up doing a software engineering degree apprenticeship. Right. I started September, but I was gone by December. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I wanted to be more active.
Well, similar. I went to college and it was very different back in the day. My college, my BTEC diploma. Sorry, Monique, if we're running over on this a little bit. I'm sure we can start when we start. But I found a kindred spirit. When I've left school, I went to college and I did a BTEC national diploma in engineering. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. Why I didn't do sport, I do not know. So yes, just think yourself at the moment as doing you'll see me on foundation anyway, because I work with level 3, so I'll be probably your first lecturer that you'll meet at university, and we do a lot of fun stuff. It's fun. We don't, nothing's boring. We're trying to change the manifest as well on how we present for level 3. Like sort of less written work, more practical, which is university's supposed to be. Intelligence, having fun, is creativity, and that can't happen when you're being nailed down to just assessment. So if there's any questions you've got at the end, please let me know. I'm going to switch over and then put on this brief. Let me just sort this screen share out. Here we go. And then I can screen share and start. And I'm just going to basically talk for 15-20 minutes just about my journey. So if you've got any questions, please feel free. I won't be able to see the screen, but I do believe, Monique, you can cut and shut this video, so you don't need to do all the or do it. University of East London, we're very engaged with our students. We're probably more lecture fed than we are research compared to other universities like Liverpool, John Moore. They're very research, whereas we're more sort of support the students. So it's a bit of both really. But there is a research area that's starting to come up. So there might be some things you can reflect in, there might be not. Mine's a journey. I'm 47 years old. I've kind of been over this for some time now. So yeah, I'm sort of the other end of life now. I'm just waiting to perish. So
I wouldn't say that. I think
Well,
it's cool.
you don't know my life. I live in Essex and I'm a bit mad and I jump out of aeroplanes. It's not going to be long. And as well, on that note, I'm just going to say, as a scientist, as the first law of thermodynamics is you cannot create nor destroy energy. So if something dies, how can it die when it always exists? Right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm sorry, I've got to go for the permissions again because bloody start again. Right, here we go. This is Teams for you. Oh, it's going to cut and reopen again. I do apologise.
All right.
It's like. No. There we go. Right. Sorry, back again. Monique, you're going to have to do a little bit of editing with this, I'm afraid. I just didn't realise teams that we do this with Moodle as well, Moodle updates every year, and it's like we just fight. Right, so I'm going to camera share. I'm going to waffle on for a little bit. Share content includes sound, I suppose. Yeah, here we go. So there we are. Allow. I'm going to allow. Hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Check.
Yeah, all good. Should I start recording, Lee?
Is it not recording already?
No, it hasn't been, but I can record now.
Okay. Yes. Wait until I just get my screen on. That's good, because that would have been a bit of a calamity. I should wait till I get my screen. Thank you very much, Mike. It's lovely to meet
no worries.
Might get some questions about this as well, because I'm quite happy to have a chat with you. And I'll pop you my email. And if you've got anything leading up to this you wish to discuss, please, by all means, pop me an email. I've got some level 3s at the moment that are joining in with my stuff. So yes, please, Monique, if you can start now, that'd be fantastic.
No problem. Just gonna.
There we go. Minimise. I can't get rid of this for some reason. Here we go. Are you recording?
Oh, yep, it is recording. Yep.
Perfect. Sorry, it's going back. So my name is Lee Brown. I am currently a PhD by publication candidate, hence the C there. I know it's not copyrighted. He wouldn't let me do it. I've been researching now for the last, I would say, 6 years. I've been producing research that you can find on my repository. By all means, you can definitely pop me an email and I can send you some articles. My main area was combat sports. I've done my combat sports specific title, which is strength and conditioning preparation for Muay Thai athletes and coaches. And the idea of that is to bring about an understanding, evidence-based background information for what we've got at the moment. So at the moment, there isn't like a very detailed construct of what exercises you should do. There's a really good paper by Anthony Turner back in 2009, and it was the first of a kind, really. My whole paper was sort of inspired and based upon it. I was still fighting back in 2009, and I read this paper. It was fantastic. It showed me all what you should and shouldn't do, and just kind of like suggestions. But the papers that we do, the research we produce, it isn't to rubbish what's being done in gyms, because everything in a gym that a coach would do cannot be researched. Most coaches don't have the ability to be able to go into a research. You have to gain ethics. You have to, you have to have a certain amount of equipment, and lots of the times you have to have the ability to write it up, and it's an arduous process. Then you have the reviewer that gives you horrible feedback, but very good feedback after you've digested it after 2 weeks of getting the annoyance, and it improves. And when you research, and this is what we like to, kind of my journey, especially with the PhD publication, is I've had 4 publications that was led in a thread, and the first one was basically a physiological profile of Muay Thai. What exercises correlate, not cause, but correlate to a better striking performance. And we found things like more pull-ups you do would be a better striker, the squat, the maximum squat, and so on and so forth. And then from the back of that, I was able to produce 3 other exercise modalities that could provide or prove whether they do or do not work in that particular setting. So that's under review at the moment. I've submitted my thesis, which is a 10,000 word thesis backed up by 4 studies. That will be Viva in September, where I have to defend it with 2 persons external that are experts in industry. One of them being Anthony Turner, who I basically read his stuff on. So he couldn't get more of an expert. Nice guy, definitely lovely fella. So just to explain what I've got written on there, I've got obviously my name, PhD, my candidate. I'm a chartered scientist, so I am answerable to the scientist chartership if I am to do anything unethical, which is to ensure that everything I do is ethical and I am answerable. I'm also what's called a CSCS, which is the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. That's with the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's the global association. We have our own one, but it's not that. I am also a fellowship of higher education, which would be my qualification as a lecturer. I'm also an RSCC, which is one of, I believe it's gone up now, but it's around 850 in the world. And I think there's only, I think on a handful of like, I think there's like 12 or 14 of us in the UK. That means I've acquired my strength conditioning associate level to more than a professional part. And I've just been put onto a panel and a series of groups within the NSCA that oversee grants going up to around $10,000 to associates around the globe. I'm also a CSPS, which is a Certified Special Population Specialist. I don't like the word special populations. I prefer the word populations. It's changing, like everything tends to change over a period of time. And I'm also a Task F, which is a tactical strength conditioning facilitator. I've worked with the Parachute Regiment for the last 7 years, and I'm now moving into with the London Fire Brigade as a consultant with populations. So that's me. There's a lot more to it than that. I've got even more. That's all I did just for breakfast. But those are the things I do. And the reason why I've got a picture of a person, not a man, but a person standing what we hope to be Mars, is because science is about knowing everything, but it's about the zest for knowing. You know, probably similar to your journey, Mike, that you're looking to do now, is you have which I have. I always wanted to know. You know, you hear things from people. It's hearsay. Oh, he said that. She said that. They've said that. They've said this. But is it true? And it's not to discredit things. It's not to discount information that someone's learned. Anecdotal evidence is something you've learned over a period of time. You've explained to me before we started recording about how you want your journey at universities because you want to find out for yourself. You want to go on your own science journey. And that to me is so fruitful that the ending to that is, or actually the journey itself, let alone the ending, is going to be extremely rewarding because you're going to get to find out what we actually do behind the curtain. And you, like I said, you're either a researcher, a practitioner, or a researcher and a practitioner. So if you can bring the science to the populace, then it will just increase our understanding. And the reason why I've got epidemiology there as well is because of the second part. I'm also now moving into clinical conditions. So we all have heroes. I'm at the moment, not at the moment, but I'm developing even more as an advocate for women in STEM. STEM is the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Marie Curry, as pictured there, she was, I don't know if you've seen the Marie Curry story, but she was a phenomenal character of someone around the ages of prejudice, before women's rights as such in many ways. And I mean, the story, the work that she's done is phenomenal. So being a researcher and being in science, I would believe the strongest researchers are mavericks. A maverick is someone that doesn't conform to society. Society's rules are grounded and found upon mistakes made, but those mistakes are forever being, mistakes, I suppose, in many ways are lessons. And as long as you learn from them and you do it, I mean, Einstein said that the purest definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So this is my research strategy and philosophy, not just from Marie Curry, she's and many others, many others that just did not conform to society. They did not listen to others when they were telling them to do something. They wanted to know themselves. And that is what science is. That's how we move forward. That's how we evolve as humans. So we need to ask the questions, the what, the why, and the how. So the what would be the gaps in research. What is out there? I mean, at the moment, we're still in the infancy of our race. We're still disparaged between saying that we're a different race. We're not. We are one race. Since 2003, the Human Genome Project has provided us with enough information to show that we are all the same. But we are all as different as we are the same. There's one race, but there's a lot of different types within our race. So we have to think about the gaps in research. What would work for one person wouldn't work for the other. But that's not to say you should do the same thing over again and test someone else's methods, but perhaps in a different way. So there's also, you know, what are our limits? Our limits at the moment is technology. There's stuff that we want to do. I believe, and again, this is my opinion as a researcher, I believe we're the dumbest, cleverest animals on the planet. We now know that we don't know much, but we know that we don't know much, and we're now at that kind of like acceptance, which I think's quite fantastic. You know, at my age, at a technological changeover, and you probably won't remember this, but you used to have a dial-up on a phone to get the internet. Used to make a strange little phone, whereas now you can just tap a few buttons on your phone, you've got instant information. So I was quite lucky, I suppose, to be able to see that transition. I'm old enough to have that dial phone where you put your finger in, you put it all the way around. I never understood why I used to have 999 at the end, because that took longer than 111 when you're in an emergency. But so our limits, what are our limits? Our limits are technology. But the beauty of that is also in the last 10 years, we now know that we've advanced more so than we have in 85 years. And now AI is here. And the university, I believe, University of East London, has taken a very responsible step in accepting that. And what we do is we teach the use and implementation of AI into your learning, but in a responsible manner. Whereas some other institutions may say we've banned it. You can't ban something that's never going away. AI performs operations. AI increases our intelligence, and it takes away the hardships and the research that, you know, it's not flawless, obviously. It's artificial intelligence. Our own intelligence is flawed, but it's growing, and that's our limits. But that's our limits today. It's not our limits tomorrow. So the next question is, why are we doing it? Why do we need to research? Well, we need to research because we need to evolve. Are we the only ones in the universe? Scary if we are, scary if we aren't.
We're not, man. I don't believe we are anyways.
Exactly.
I mean,
there's not.
I'm a bit different to people my age. Like, I understand a lot of things you say because I've already feel like as human beings, I've already understood we're very late in our evolution, but already growing very fast at the same time. There's different people who are evolving at faster rates.
What would you say? Sorry to interrupt. Just what would you say? We're late in our evolution. What would you say?
Because why I say that is because
and it's obviously opinion based, so you got nothing.
I have to say it's opinion based, but my understanding.
No. I'm just saying. So I can't argue opinion. We can only argue. But that's your opinion. But why would you say we're late in our evolution?
Because I do feel like, for example, in terms of when you look at different tribes, if you want to compare, for example, muscle memory, and I just want to talk about muscle memory. Muscle memory is also, from my understanding, linked to a bit of intuition. There's ancient other natives cultures that I research that talk a lot about intuition and how you can just basically use your body in a different way. However, if you only think about the logical mind, which is what the Western world is mainly based on, from my understanding, we basically
logically. Nurture. Yeah, no, that's a debate for definitely
for another time. But
no, I do understand what you said. But what I was sort of getting at was with regards to evolution. I personally, on sort of come back to that, is I don't know if we could say we're behind in evolution because we've got nothing to compare against. We haven't got another race of humans or beings with species. But I also believe it's kind of like part of why we're doing it. You know, we now know, Garrett, what I've just said, we now know that we're the dumbest animals and the cleverest animals on the planet. What you just said there just says it all. You know, some nations, we're not brought together, but that's the beauty of the internet. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? But that's the reason why we're doing it. You know, why hasn't it been done? Well, it hasn't been done yet because we haven't done it yet. So that's the reason why you're here. That's the reason why you're on your journey. And anyone else listening to this, I want anyone to think that anyone can publish, anyone with the right mind and the right attitude. What you just said there, you know, the Western kind of theme to things compared to other types of areas. You know, you've got so many different work ethics, and that's tradition. That's nature. Sorry, skip myself and done there. That's nurture. So from this, and again, anyone listening to this, we're not born stupid and we're not born clever. We're born with a set amount of neurotransmitters and genes and all the rest of it. But that's all influenced and that's changed by our environment. Our environment changes. So when you come to university, hopefully you'll get an opportunity. And this is for me, you know, my explained story earlier. I come from a very kind of poverty-stricken, impoverished background, and I've now got a PhD going, and I'm being flown to America and all over the world to give my research. So you know, at the end of it, there are obviously still prejudices in society, but a lot of this, like that Marie Curie I've got pictured, she went against every single prejudice, and she's got 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. I mean, what an absolute maverick! She took a rickety old cart with an X-ray machine on the front row, front line of the First World War to save people, and everyone just laughed at her. And she took that, and I mean, wow! She's just like, Jesus, just a leading maverick. And that's not to say that you can be that. You can be that person. The only person I would back realistically is yourself. Yeah, there are gatekeepers, but there's ways around it. And that's what my point is to research. So just sort of moving quickly, just the possibly the most important, and how you're going to answer questions. And, you know, it's all about the how. So you've got the what we're going to do, then we have a discussion, then we're going to go, well, why are we going to do it? But how? How are we going to do it? How can we change culture? How can you just said there about the different types of tribes around the world? How can you do that? There's different ways. You can't, personally, opinion, you can't tell someone to do something. You have to convince them. So like, for instance, my ADHD, if I'm already going to go and fix my car and you tell me to go and fix my car, I will no longer fix my car. It's how you convince someone to do it. And that's how it goes from being a scientist to presenting your ideas to create change. So at university, and all the universities in the UK, we're kind of governed by what's called REF and KEF. So REF is Research Excellence Framework, and KEF is Knowledge Excellence Framework. Our university is starting to push forwards with REF, but KEF, I think, is more important. So like the stuff that I'm doing is working as a researcher, going into communities. I don't just want to find out this amazing information and keep it to myself. I've started collaborating with bioscience, and they can do all the blood, so they can do determinations, and they keep rejoicing about the fact that they can come out of the lab and give it to me, that then gives it to persons in sport. So how are you going to change culture? How will you present the outcome? How are you going to answer the questions? And these are the things that I've learned. Again, this is my story that I've learned over periods of time. So this is the thing. And as mentioned before, that's a little bit of me on the side. I wasn't blowing kisses, I was throwing punches. That's someone seriously out. And that's the Newton's third law of the impact. So again, my PhD by publication was my story. It's my story that I told. And in the 10,000 word thesis, I got a chance to explain my story, to explain why I started doing it. And again, with our conversation we had earlier, you know, you said to me before, it's very similar to myself. You know, you've been in there, you're still boxing, you're still taking part, but you want to understand why, how does it happen? I mean, it's those 2 questions that have just been asked, and this
Especially, I feel like in boxing, because they do say that everyone, for example, boxing, it only takes a small amount of people to get to the top, because everyone's doing the same thing. It's the same punches, the same combinations, the same patterns that we're all taught in the same gym. But what separates those, even though we all talk about psychology, all these things, but there must be more, because what's separating those people at the top? Because when there's 2 individuals that are high level, you can say, like, been training for a certain amount of years and they're competing, I always want to understand what separates the guy. Is it really his strength, or is it really just his experience?
I'm pleased you asked that. And
Because
really,
a lot of people say skills.
No, I have to say, do you have to be a stronger person to be able, okay, genetically, right? Genetically, which is still a lot of rubbish. Genetically, do you have to be a predisposed, genetically stronger person in many senses to be a sprinter, to be a world elite sprinter, genetically? Possibly. The answer to that is possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly. So when it comes to boxing or rugby or any other sport, does that genetically matter? Well, the answer is probably not. The answer is like you just said. You know, is someone going to be a better boxer from the age of 5 than someone that started at the age of 20? So this is where female sport boxing comes in. This is where, you know, when you go to a boxing gym when you're age 8 and 9, look how many males there are to females in that boxing gym. And if it comes to culture, and as I said, we're all one race, and this whole myth about, and I hate saying it because it's so inappropriately wrong. I'm just before we're talking going forwards, I'm a physiologist, I'm a scientist, so it's literally impossible for me to be prejudiced. It is impossible. It makes no sense. So this whole, you know, like this, and this is what will happen. You start opening your eyes. You know, does the tone of your skin determine the factors of how fast you are? Well, of course, in the days of old, they would say black people can sprint faster and white people can swim. And if you watch the Olympics, That's starting to change, especially within a swimming pool. So it's moving beyond. It's moving beyond, especially in a science, and you'll get annoyed at some point because you'll realise how silly it is in the media and the common media and what's being said. But once you rise above that and you start producing more evidence, you'll find your luster, you'll find your area that you'll zone in on. You know, and this is why, you know, why are people becoming better boxers when all of a sudden they're doing different types of training that suits them? So your genetic factors are like probably 5 or 6%, and your environment factors are probably like 95, and a few other bits and bobs here and there. But have an understanding of how to throw that punch harder is different to how it lands harder. So you can throw a punch, but what about weekends? So that could be a discussion. We could have another day.
What about what, sorry?
Paper on that.
What about what, sorry?
So when you throw, oh, sorry, that was sorry, my bad. So when you throw a punch, when you produce force, it's mass times acceleration equals force. That's Newton's second law. When you contact with the punch as it's landing there, that's Newton's third law. That's the for every force there is an equal and opposite force. So if I wasn't as trained, but I was really strong, I could throw that punch, but as it lands, if it lands on a heavier mass, and I haven't got the effectiveness to be able to connect that punch, for that punch to be able to be forced into my opposition, that kinetic energy could technically go back into the arm.
Okay, this is why people get injured after when they basically hit on the back. Okay.
So this is where a lot of researchers aren't focusing on. Loads of research out there is on throwing medicine balls. But I've just done a paper that's just been accepted. I'm so pleased because it was actually on a basis of a discussion. I never have debates and I never have arguments. I have discussions because as soon as it becomes a debate, it turns into an argument. You reach an impasse and no one works, no one wins. So I had a discussion with my biomechanist and he said, it's all about throwing the punches. And I said, no, it's about the connection. And this has had a reviewer as well. So I've worked with some really big names. Seth Lunetsky is one to look up. Seth Lunetsky and Paul Comfort, absolutely formidable authors and researchers in this area. And we've done ballistic press-ups, which is where you're bouncing off the floor, versus normal press-ups. And the persons that have done the ballistic press-ups, we can't call them plyometrics, they're called ballistic press-ups, the rebound press-ups off the floor, because you're making that contact, you're making an impact, you're creating that Newton's third law, they improved their punch, novices, by 50% on impact.
50%?
50% by doing a slightly different exercise that takes probably a little bit more energy to begin with, but doesn't over a period of time and doesn't really change much of a difference, but can add 50% of your training. So you could do less for more.
That's exactly what I'm on.
There you go. That's the reason why we research. Okay. And I can show you that paper after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It actually does. That, do you know what? That's I was kind of that's actually kind of answer to one of my questions that I've been kind of trying to understand. So I'll be so real. Yeah.
So when you come to University of East London, you can ask me all these questions. I don't live in an ivory tower. None of us do. We sit in an office, we wait for students, and I wait for students' engagement. I can lead a horse to water, but can't make it drink, right? But if you're to come to the University of East London, this is what we pride ourselves on, and as such, many other universities do. So not taking anything away from them at all ever, because you shouldn't. And it also would be true anyway. But if you was to engage with your lecturers, like for instance, you've turned up to me now on the hottest day of the year. So rather than sunning yourself and having fun, you're here to learn information, which means to me you've got great interest and massive potential, which means I'll be hitting you up for research, which means that you'll be an engaged student. During the summer, I do research studies and I'm bringing students. So you'll get from this university degree more than most. I'm just going to tell you that now, I guarantee. So yeah, this discussion more sort of later on. This would be interesting. So just sort of moving slightly different, and again, this will be something you can look into. And it's, you know, at the moment you're sort of looking at combat sports, and I did when you go through that university, and I do my research, you start to change into different areas because there's so much. So what we're looking at the moment is intermittent hypoxia training. Now, not the best example I've got on there because there's a hyperbaric chamber. Well, have you seen Deadpool, the film?
Yeah.
Do you know how Deadpool turns into a mutant or he mutates his genes? Do you remember?
Nah, I don't remember actually. Go on.
He goes into a hypoxia chamber, or they strap him into a hypoxia chamber. They switch off his oxygen and switch it back on again. So what fiction goes into fact is we're using hypoxia at the moment, which is where you bring down the oxygen. What we're doing is quite safely bringing it down. We're bringing it down as if you was up Ben Nevis and then beyond up to Everest. And it's hypoxia, not hyperbaric. And by bringing that oxygen, those levels lower, it can increase your body's adaptation rate to all of these things we're seeing on here. And all of these things at the moment are being looked at. All of these things. By going in, we've got a study at the moment where we've got someone with Parkinson's disease. And I don't know if you know this, but Parkinson's disease at the moment is being investigated a bit, but not enough. 2 on every hour, 2 persons on every hour on average in the UK are being diagnosed with Parkinson's. When you get diagnosed with Parkinson's, because it's a kind of end of life condition that turns into dementia or worse, there's not a lot of hope. So this person that's been doing a case study with us, she's been going to the hypoxia chamber twice a week, all free obviously. We don't charge and we don't pay as such without funding. She's been coming up, and the biggest thing she said to us is that she's been given hope. If you've got a clinical condition that will just be a very, I'm trying to say this without kind of deleterious, harmful to the body, with something that really sort of, it can be quite dark and isolating, and it can cause pain. And so we're looking at using hypoxia as a non-drug therapy. It's non-invasive, it's not dangerous. Also, we're looking at hypoxia training for boxers. It increases your EPO, it increases your body's ability to produce oxygen to the body. So when you go into hypoxia, your brain, it's like when I'll tell you what, a perfect example. Have you been on a plane?
Yeah.
You've been on a long haul flight?
Yeah.
So a long haul flight, when you get, where's the furthest you've been? 12 hours?
Probably, around 12 hours, yeah.
Do you feel extra tired when you get off?
Oh, I feel dizzy. Yeah, I remember I did feel dizzy a little bit, yeah.
Tired. That's altitude sickness because your plane's pressure between 8,000 and 10,000 feet above sea level. So at the moment we've got 21% that we breathe, and still at that height we're still breathing 21%, but the pressure's different. So the pressure inside your lungs are lower than the pressure on the outside. But when you go higher and higher and higher, it becomes more or less the same. And when the pressure's the same, your oxygen can't pass over into the alveoli, and you can't bring the oxygen in, and you can't get rid of your carbon dioxide and all the nitrogen release. So what we try and do is we mimic that. So you're feeling tired to come out. But if you've done that intermittently over a period of time, your brain releases dopamine. It releases norepinephrine, epinephrine, and all these other beautiful neurotransmitters that changes your body into adaptation. But there just isn't enough. There isn't enough research out there to say it does it indefinitely. Definitely. There's not enough research, which is why we're now pioneering. We're working with Parkinson's UK. We've applied for funding. We're going to be working towards what's called a knowledge transfer partnership, where we'll be going to big corporate organisations and working with the government and investing millions of pounds. Now, if this does what I believe it's going to do, and I'm so invested in this, I believe this is going to change and save lives. I honestly believe this is going to lead us into cancer treatment, which I know someone's working with cancer, which is Deadpool. He had cancer, didn't he? And then he had the hypoxia that cured it. Obviously, turned him into an X-Man, which is pretty cool. And I've tried that and I've become a Z-Man. Z generation, that is. No, sorry, I'm X-Gen, aren't I? So with this pioneering information, this pioneering research that you can be a part of, as part of the university, if you was to develop, what's to stop you being on a world stage? What's to stop you developing this research and then providing this to the world stage, which is what I'm doing.
That's true. No, that's crazy. Right, to play like that. That's true.
I'm doing this right now. Yeah, I've gone from a very impoverished background where I was homeless when I was 15 to now doing my PhD by pubs and to talking on world stages, to working with the London Fire Brigade, the Parachute Regiment, all types of different areas that I couldn't even envisage or believe would have been me. So not to big the University of Beyond, but I started the University of East London and I am the University of East London. It is literally been the saving grace of my life, and I wouldn't be talking to you now if it weren't for that. So on the back of me sharing my story, on the back of the information I've given you about the university generally and about research, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I did. It was about the chamber. I wanted to ask: is it similar to people, for example, who live in high altitude? So
I'm glad you said that. So it's slightly different. It simulates it. So when you live in a high altitude, if you can see here, you've got, I don't know, my cursor's over it. That's a hyperbaric chamber.
yeah,
They can use this as hyperbaric hypoxia. At the moment, it's normal baric, normal hypoxia. Hypoxia is where you've got, say, for instance, 12% oxygen. So you're going in a sealed chamber and it brings oxygen down. The reason why we don't use that, the hyperbaric one, is because it messes with pressures. And it can be quite dangerous if you get it wrong. It can be quite dangerous if you've got someone in there with contraindications. So this would mimic going up to, say, for instance, Everest. You go in hyperbaric or hypobaric, and then you can think about when you go in depths, when they go below the sea, so they're pressures. Whereas what we want to do is simulate what we've found from persons going up there, but we change the percent of oxygen. So that gives the same neurotransmitters, and I want you to look that up, the neurotransmitters, and if you've got pen and paper, I want you to write down catecholamines. Catecholamines, they've for years, it's something I've been chasing the understanding of, and I shall never give up. I believe what we can do with catecholamines, because when you've got Parkinson's, you stop producing dopamine. Dopamine synthesize norepinephrine. Norepinephrine produces or helps synthesize melatonin, which is your sleep. So the two big things about Parkinson's is isolation, lack of sleep. But Levodopa, which is it's an amazing drug, but it's a synthesized version of dopamine, and it doesn't work forever, and it stops working after a certain amount of time. But what's to say we can use hypoxia with Levodopa and make it work better? That's a future challenge for us. This, by the time you finish your degree, this could be an area we're starting to go into. What's to say that we use hypoxia enough? You don't need to use the dopa, and we can keep. There's a part of you, it's a very small part of your brain that's called the substantia nigra compacta, PAS, I believe it's called in the end, PAS, and that supposedly degenerates and stops working. We don't entirely know because it's called idiopathic. What's to say, that this hypoxia doesn't restart that or slow degeneration?
Slow it down. Yeah.
We don't know. 6 months, a few years ago, we thought that once you had a stroke, that's it. Now you're done. We now know that if you rehabilitate within the first 6 months, you increase and you recreate neural pathways.
So this is about extending lives, then.
Yes, and quality of life.
Yeah, quality.
Imagine if we unravel, this is where I'm getting excited now. Imagine if we unraveled and identified hypoxia, and then we worked out the mechanisms to the delivery of content, because it's all about your carotid bodies within, which is your chemoreceptors, which are in your neck. And they then go to your hypothalamus, and they tell you about the oxygen and temperature and all the rest of it. Imagine if we understood what we don't understand now, which goes down to the why and the how. And then imagine if we can unravel that. Imagine if we could be the Marie Curie of the modern day society. So we start, it starts, and this is Parkinson's. There's not enough. I'm an RCCP, which is a registered clinical physiologist. And there's only 87, I think it's 88 now in the country, and it's projected there's supposed to be 12,000 of us. So once you've been told you've got one of these neurological or cardiovascular or metabolic diseases, you're kind of on your own. So once you've done your sports and exercise science, you can go into the area of clinical physiology. It's something that we've just started at university. You can help save people. Imagine the market. If there's only 87 of me and there needs to be 12,000, you kind of got a job ready and waiting for you. So you can work with sports, you can work with clinical, you can work with persons within communities and coaching and developing. There's so much out there than just being, sports exercise science. It doesn't just mean you're going to become a teacher. It doesn't just mean you're going to work in a performance team. There's so much to it. It's just never ending. Perhaps got me carried away there. Did I answer your question? Sorry, I know I went a little bit off.
No, you did. No, it's true, because even though I still compete, still train, because I've always knew that there was a part of me always knew that I can do more. It's funny enough because I feel like I'm naturally talented. I've worked hard as well, but I've evolved. In boxing, I started properly in 2020. I used to be on and off when I was younger. Same thing, troubled youth. So street will take me away, and I go back to it. Took it seriously.
It's a community. Do you know, boxing is one of the unsung heroes of saving people from criminal activity. I work with Stonebridge Boxing Club. Absolutely incredible. They, I'm covered in tattoos. Without glasses, I look like Action Man jumping out of a helicopter. When actually I'm going into becoming a doctor. But when I go there, nobody judges you. In any boxing gym you ever go to, nobody judges you as long as you're not producing criminal activity. It's an amazing community and a family. Are you still there, Mike? I don't know if you... Have we lost your mic? Mike, have you lost your mic? Have I lost my mic? I think I may have lost him. Monique, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Oh, no.
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, we may have just lost Mike's. He may have gone off board. If anyone's watching this, Teams is having a slight issue, and they've updated the system, but I do believe they've still got a few bugs in the system. So if anyone's watching, University of East London and the NSCA, fantastic for research and incredible for student engagement. I strongly suggest anyone who's still watching this, if you're still watching this, we haven't edited it, to please, by all means, look us up. My name is Lee Brown, again, working for the University of East London and the NSCA.